October 16th, 2011. The city of Sirte, Libya. Inside a sewer pipe, covered in blood, a 69-year-old man is hiding. This is the same man who ruled Libya for 42 years. The man the world called the Mad Dog of the Middle East. And today, he is living his final moments. But this story does not start here. This story begins 70 years earlier, with a poor Bedouin family in the desert, where a boy was born named Muammar Gaddafi. In today's video, I'm going to tell you how a goat herder's son became Libya's most powerful man, how he oppressed his own people, and how it all came to an end. So let's begin the story of Libya's most controversial leader. The year was 1942. Libya was an Italian colony at that time. In the western desert, in a small village called Kaza Abu Hadi, a boy was born into a poor Bedouin family of the Khalifa tribe. His name was Muammar Mohammed Abu Minya al-Gaddafi. His father, Abu Minya, raised goats and camels. The family was so poor that young Gaddafi had to travel far from home to attend school. At night, he slept in the local mosque because his home was too far away. But this poverty, these hardships, they created something unique inside Gaddafi. Gaddafi's childhood was not like that of an ordinary child. He heard stories from his father about how the Italians had oppressed the Libyan people. Imagine this. In the 1920s, Mussolini's Italian soldiers invaded Libya. They used modern weapons, tanks, planes, and poison gas. They built concentration camps where over 100,000 Libyans were imprisoned. Approximately 70,000 people died in these camps. The Italians destroyed water wells, eliminated livestock, and people began dying of starvation. Gaddafi's father had fought against these invaders and had been defeated. Now think about it. A young boy who heard these stories throughout his childhood, what must have been going through his mind? In the 1950s, when Gaddafi was a teenager, Libya gained its independence. King Idris I became the first monarch. But had true freedom really arrived? No. British and American military bases were still in Libya. Western companies controlled Libya's oil, and King Idris was working alongside Western powers. For young Gaddafi, this was not freedom. This was just another form of colonialism. Gaddafi was only 14 or 15 years old, and then an event happened in the world that would change his life forever. Egypt's President Gamal Abdel Nasser nationalized the Suez Canal. Israel, Britain, and France attacked Egypt, but Nasser defeated them. This was the first time an Arab leader had given a powerful response to Western powers. For Gaddafi, Nasser was not just a president. He was a hero. He was an inspiration. He was living proof that Arabs could also become powerful. Gaddafi started listening to the Voice of the Arabs radio program, which broadcast from Cairo. He listened to every speech by Nasser and memorized every word. And at his school, what did Gaddafi do? He organized student protests against King Idris and against the British bases. In 1961, after one such protest, Gaddafi was expelled from school. Not only was he expelled, but he was also banned from studying in his entire home province. But this did not stop Gaddafi. He moved to Misrata, 700 kilometers away. There, he completed his education. And at the same time, he began building a secret revolutionary network. Cells in Sabah, cells in Misrata, cells in Tripoli, cells in Zliten. Slowly, an underground network of revolutionary students formed across Libya. And the leader of them all was Muammar Gaddafi. Gaddafi now understood that student protests alone would not accomplish anything. Real power was needed. And where was the real power in Libya? In the army. Gaddafi held a meeting with his closest followers, and they decided that they would join the Benghazi Military Academy. From there, they would control the army from within. And when the time came, they would stage a coup. This idea seemed impossible, but Gaddafi was confident. He said himself, "The army is the only thing capable of imposing the people's will by force." At the academy, Gaddafi changed the name of his revolutionary group to the Free Unionist Officers Movement, just as Nasser had done in Egypt. But life at the academy was not easy. Gaddafi constantly clashed with officers. He received punishments. Everyone knew about his rebellious nature. But one incident revealed Gaddafi's dark side. A cadet at the academy committed a serious offense. What did Gaddafi do? He had the young man's hands and feet tied. And then, with his group, he began shooting him. Not to end his life, but to torture him. When an officer finally arrived and ended it, Gaddafi and his friends were laughing. This was Gaddafi's true face. Brutal, ruthless, merciless. In 1965, Gaddafi graduated, and then he began waiting for the perfect moment for his coup. Around 1965 to 1969, what did Gaddafi and his followers do? They stole weapons. They stole ammunition. They recruited more supporters in every city. Quietly, secretly, patiently. The military leadership had some suspicions. Gaddafi was interrogated several times. He was placed under surveillance. But they did not take Gaddafi seriously. They thought this was just a pipe dream, a fantasy of a group of young, foolish officers. What a terrible mistake that was. September 1st, 1969, 2:30 in the morning. Tripoli. Gaddafi and his revolutionaries attacked radio stations, communication centers, and government buildings. Many mistakes were made. Some conspirators arrived at the wrong locations. Some officials escaped. There was complete chaos. But King Idris was not at the palace. He was outside the country. And when he asked the British for help, the British refused. Within hours, the monarchy had fallen. The next morning, Libyans heard a voice on the radio. Libya is now a free, self-governing republic. We will advance on the road to freedom, unity, and social justice. With God's help, prosperity and equality will rule us all. 27-year-old Muammar Gaddafi had become the ruler of Libya. But this was only the beginning of the story. The real terror was about to begin. The coup was successful, but now the real challenge was maintaining power. What did Gaddafi do first? He sent a message to Egypt's Nasser, his childhood hero. Nasser was shocked. He sent his chief advisor to investigate. Later, Nasser himself met Gaddafi. He was amazed at how rustic and inexperienced these revolutionaries were. But Nasser helped. He sent Egyptian advisors and military officers to Libya. And this is where Gaddafi's transformation begins, from revolutionary to dictator. First of all, hundreds of arrests. Royal family members, politicians, officials, army officers. Everyone was thrown in prison. Public trials were broadcast on television. It was a drama of humiliation. Tribal boundaries were redrawn. Traditional power structures were broken. The Islamic University at Al-Baida was closed because opposition discussions took place there. He gave himself the rank of colonel, the same as Nasser. Gaddafi had promised his fellow revolutionaries that after the coup, power would be returned to the people. But now he said no. In December 1969, some civilian leaders attempted another coup. It failed. Gaddafi crushed everyone involved. Some of Gaddafi's close allies also became angry, especially Mohammed Naim, who wanted democracy. But Gaddafi did not listen. Power had been obtained. Who would want to give it up now? In the early 1970s, Gaddafi began transforming Libya according to his vision. And his vision was to remove the West from Libya. March 1970, British military bases were closed. Americans were also expelled a few months later. The Libyan Jewish community was expelled. Italian settlers were expelled. All their property was confiscated. Foreign banks and oil facilities were all nationalized. And then Gaddafi attacked Western culture. Casinos were closed. Nightclubs were closed. Alcohol was banned. In 1972, Sharia law was implemented. Many Libyans were angry, but quite a few were also happy. After years of colonialism, finally there was a leader who was giving a strong response to the West. But up to this point, things were still acceptable. Now the real dictatorship begins. 1972, Law Number 71. Any Libyan who engages in party politics will be given the death penalty. This law remained in effect until 2011. That's 39 years. Trade unions were banned. Free press was shut down. 10 major newspapers were closed. Censorship was everywhere. And the economy collapsed. Unemployment skyrocketed. There was chaos everywhere. People became disillusioned with Gaddafi. Where had the promises of the revolution gone? April 16, 1973, the town of Zavara, near Tripoli. A special public meeting. Gaddafi had announced he was going to resign. People gathered. Cameras were set up. Everyone was waiting. And then Gaddafi came on stage. And what did he say? I will not resign. Instead, I am launching a cultural revolution. All of Libya was shocked. What was happening? Gaddafi announced his 5-point program. First, all old laws would end. Only revolutionary laws would exist. Second, anti-revolutionaries must be suppressed. Third, the bureaucracy must be destroyed. Fourth, the people must be armed to form a people's militia. Fifth, any teachings against the Quran would be banned. Committees were formed in every city. Over 2,000 committees were created in just the first few months. Mayors and school administrators were removed. Gaddafi's supporters came into these positions. At universities, Gaddafi ordered, tear up all imported books that are against Arabism and Islam. And then he recruited 40,000 people into his militia, armed supporters who would follow his every order. But Gaddafi's most controversial contribution was his political philosophy, the Third Universal Theory, and his book, The Green Book. Gaddafi claimed that capitalism had turned humans into circus animals. Communism had turned them into sheep. His system was perfect, with true democracy. How? There would be no parliaments, no parties, only small committees in which every citizen would participate. Wages would be abolished. Exploitation would end. The family would be supreme. The theory was interesting, but in reality, it was a disaster. Corruption was rampant. No one participated in the committees. The system was chaotic. And Gaddafi? He talked about people's authority, but the real power was his. March 2nd, 1977, Sebha, Libya. Gaddafi announced the declaration of the establishment of the authority of the people. Libya became the Socialist People's Libyan Arab Jamahiriya. Jamahiriya means state of the masses. The flag was also changed to a plain green flag. Who was the special guest? Fidel Castro. There were celebrations, crowds in the streets. A new era was beginning, or at least that's what was promised. But reality was something else. Students were protesting. The same students whom Gaddafi had once inspired with his speeches. Gaddafi's response? Public hangings. Students who were involved in protests in 1976 were publicly hanged in 1977. Where? On the Al Fatah University campus. Students were forced to watch their classmates being executed. These hangings were broadcast on television across Libya. The message was clear. Oppose me, and this is your fate. April 7th became Execution Day. Every year on this day, public executions would take place.
In 1978 and 1979, Gaddafi made his masterstroke. He formally resigned from government positions, but he kept the title Leader of the Revolution, or Brother Leader. And at the same time, he created the Revolutionary Committees. This was Gaddafi's secret police. It started on university campuses. Students who were devoted to the revolution were given the job of rooting out dissidents. Gaddafi said revolutionary committees should be everywhere, secret or public, to destroy any organization that stands in the way. He called them the prophets of the age of masses. Now imagine what the state of Libya would be. Spies in every university, spies in every workplace, spies in every neighborhood, media completely controlled, free press eliminated. By 1980, what Gaddafi had done was something no colonizer had ever accomplished: complete isolation of Libyans from the outside world. Thousands of arrests, interrogations, torture, public executions, televised confessions, an atmosphere of terror. No one could speak openly. No one could trust anyone. What Gaddafi had done in the name of revolution had actually become the worst kind of dictatorship. And what was the state of the economy? Complete disaster. Gaddafi's policies included confiscating private property, crushing private businesses. Everything became state-controlled, and the Libyan dinar was devalued. The result was consumer shortages, poor quality imports, and no jobs in the private sector. Everyone was working for the state, and what was the state providing? Pointless desk jobs, healthcare, welfare, a home, a car. But people were poor. Salaries were frozen in 1981 and remained frozen until the 2000s. There was a lot of oil revenue, but it was being wasted. Corruption was rampant. Gaddafi's policies also destroyed rural areas. Poverty throughout Libya. Suffering, and there was no escape. But Gaddafi did not want to remain limited to Libya. His vision was to become the leader of the entire Arab world. In 1970, at a celebration, Gaddafi openly threatened foreign dignitaries, including his hero Nasser. "If you all do not unite, I will bring revolution." Nasser became so angry that he slammed his fist on the table and told Gaddafi to shut up. But Gaddafi did not stop. After Nasser's death, he thought he would be the next Arab leader. In the 1970s and 80s, Gaddafi attempted to end the life of Tunisia's prime minister. He supported coup attempts in Morocco, coup attempts in Sudan. He supported rebellions in Egypt. He helped Iranians and Kurds against Saddam Hussein. He funded Palestinian militant groups, especially radical ones. He created a fund for action against Israel, and not just the Middle East, but around the world. He gave money to Italian communist insurgents, support to Japanese insurgents, funds to the IRA, the Irish Republican Army, help to Basque separatists, Muslim insurgents in the Philippines. In Africa, Gaddafi had a whole empire. He helped Uganda's dictator Idi Amin. He sent 2,500 soldiers who were all eliminated. He gave millions to the Emperor of the Central African Republic. He supported Nelson Mandela's ANC. He supported Muslim rebels in Chad, leading to a bloody civil war. The Chad War was the most disastrous. 8,000 to 10,000 Libyan soldiers were lost. Many soldiers defected and joined the opposition. Arab leaders considered Gaddafi a madman, but no one could stop him. Gaddafi did one more thing that became his biggest mistake. 1982, the International Mathabar to resist imperialism, headed by Musa Kusa, Gaddafi's most feared man. Its job was to hunt down Libyan dissidents abroad. Gaddafi called them stray dogs. London, April 1980, BBC journalist Mohammed Ramadan was shot and eliminated. More incidents in Italy, plane hijackings, attacks on foreign soil. US President Ronald Reagan called Gaddafi the mad dog of the Middle East. In 1981, US planes shot down 2 Libyan aircraft in the Gulf of Sirte. Relations were completely broken. Then an incident happened that would change everything. April 5, 1986. Berlin nightclub incident. American soldiers lost their lives. Evidence showed Gaddafi was behind the attack. April 15, 1986. At night, 18 US F-111 bombers attacked Libya. They dropped 60 tons of explosives. The targets were military sites and Gaddafi's compound. Gaddafi knew in advance the Italian Prime Minister had tipped him off. He survived, but the message was clear. Step back or face the consequences. It was humiliating for Gaddafi. His military was so weak. Internal opponents tried to stage a coup. It failed. Gaddafi made threats. I will raise armies to put fire under America's feet. But the truth was, Gaddafi was cornered.
By 2003, Libya had abandoned its nuclear program, abandoned its chemical weapons program, allowed inspectors, and shared information on Islamist groups. The U.S. restored diplomatic relations. Libya was removed from the state sponsor of terrorism list. Gaddafi even participated in the UN General Assembly in 2009. But had anything changed inside Libya? No. The dictatorship was still there. The oppression was still there. The corruption was still there. Gaddafi's sons, especially Saif al-Islam, talked about reforms. Western media was happy. Change is coming. But it was all a facade. Most Libyans saw no difference. They were still poor. They were still living in the shadow of fear. Tunisia, Egypt, Yemen, Iran, Syria. Waves of revolution were spreading among Arabs. People were overthrowing dictators. Governments that had existed for decades were falling. The Arab Spring had arrived. Gaddafi watched. He was nervous. Leaders in Tunisia and Egypt had been removed. Would the same happen in Libya? He held public meetings. He made empty promises. He distributed handouts. He activated revolutionary committees to arrest anyone suspicious. But it was too late. February 15, 2011, 3:30 in the afternoon. Benghazi. A young lawyer, Fathi Turbal, was arrested. His crime? He was representing the families of the victims of the 1996 Abu Salim massacre. When the people of Benghazi found out, there was outrage. February 17, 2011, crowds took to the streets. A day of rage was declared. Police stations began burning. The chants changed. The people want the fall of the regime. What did Gaddafi do? He unleashed his revolutionary forces. Dozens were eliminated. The rest scattered on February 17th. But the next day, the masses returned to the streets, once again calling for change. As violence escalated in Benghazi, revolts began taking shape in other cities. Gaddafi moved quickly to cut off the city by disrupting internet and cell phone coverage. It proved futile. Revolution was spreading, and it was spreading fast. As protests spread to cities throughout Libya, the regime's forces worked to brutally crush any resistance. Numbers of those lost mounted, and the crowds continued to grow. Swelled with Libyans tired of the violence and fear, that had been the staple of their daily lives for so long. Though shocked, Gaddafi quickly rallied his troops to Tripoli, where he hoped to begin reinstating his rule. With the nation in chaos, some of Gaddafi's old allies and one friend from his school days turned against him by joining the revolution. Never had a revolt become so serious in all of Gaddafi's time as ruler of Libya. He decided to crush the rebels in a way they would not soon forget. Even Gaddafi's reform-minded son, Saif al-Islam, turned against the revolutionaries. The crackdown in Tripoli was initially successful, and soon Gaddafi and his family had tamed the revolution in the western half of Libya. The East was another matter entirely. The revolutionaries in the East established what they called the National Transitional Council, or NTC. This was a coalition of various groups working together to remove Gaddafi. Many of the leaders within the NTC were former Gaddafi officials and reformers who had defected once the rebellion successfully weathered the initial crackdowns. Largely technocrats who had supported reforms. The leadership of the NTC worked to unite the Libyan opposition into a coherent and stable camp. However, the rebels lacked arms and military training. The initial gains of the rebel forces were quickly reversed in March 2011, and it appeared that Gaddafi was on his way to regaining control of Libya. As his forces surrounded the rebel stronghold of Benghazi, on March 17, 2011, Gaddafi declared, "I will finish the Battle of Benghazi tonight. I will chase you flat by flat." Many onlookers feared that the city would see massive civilian losses. However, once again the West halted Gaddafi's plans. On March 17th, the United Nations Security Council voted for a no-fly zone over Libya and authorized the use of military action to protect civilians. The combined leadership of France and the United Kingdom was the force behind the drive to intervene in Libya and found support from a portion of the Arab League. With the United States directing the intervention, French and British planes, along with 9 other nations, began to attack Libyan forces. Gaddafi seized the moment to declare that the West was preparing for an invasion of Libya. Despite the show of force, Gaddafi was not concerned. He was determined to fight to a bitter end. As NATO forces helped the rebel forces capture the key city of Misrata, after a long and bloody battle that nearly destroyed the entire infrastructure of the city, Gaddafi increasingly circled his troops around the capital of Tripoli and tightened his control of the city. People disappeared daily, and regime forces marched through the city constantly. Efforts were made through his son Saif to negotiate with the West and the rebels, but few were interested in such talks. Gaddafi was seen as too unpredictable to be trusted. Promises of open elections and democracy seemed hollow after the months of devastation that had rained down on the civilians near Benghazi. Besides, the NTC seemed to be a model government, willing to help the people and reopen Libya. Gaddafi frequently spoke out against the NTC and condemned them as collaborators of the colonial powers. By August 2011, the rebels and their NATO allies had nearly encircled Tripoli and began marching into the city. Gaddafi's forces melted away, and crowds surged into the streets in support of the revolution and ransacked his home. However, Gaddafi and his family were nowhere to be found. When rebel forces had encircled Tripoli, Gaddafi and a small convoy of loyal supporters had fled to his hometown of Sirte. Other members of the Gaddafi clan fled to sanctuaries inside and outside Libya, hoping that they could escape the consequences of their father's rule. Meanwhile, rebel forces enacted their full revenge on Gaddafi supporters, destroying the towns of Bani Walid and Sirte. Human rights concerns were numerous, and the anger the rebels felt at not finding Gaddafi in Bani Walid led to widespread destruction of the city. The battle for Sirte dragged on well into October. The regime forces fought desperately, knowing that surrender would result in their end. Gaddafi himself remained in Sirte, surviving on rice and pasta he had scavenged from the ruins of the city. He read the Quran and made phone calls for help on his satellite phone. As he attempted to flee Sirte, a NATO flyover launched a severe attack that caught the convoy by surprise. Gaddafi was wounded in both legs and was dragged into a sewer to hide. Rebel forces soon arrived and dragged out Gaddafi, raining blows on the 60-something-year-old man who was pleading for mercy. Finally, a young teenage rebel shot Gaddafi, ending the life of the once proud leader of Libya. His body was dragged through the streets of Sirte before being sent to Misrata, where his body was displayed. Though the NTC pleaded with the rebels to allow the body to be buried, the people refused to comply. Gaddafi was to have not a single honor or respect paid to him. The man who had controlled Libya and remade it to mold his image had elicited the hatred and anger of his people. Even days and weeks after his passing, crowds lined up to take pictures over the next 4 days. On October 25, 2011, Gaddafi was buried in an unknown location in the Libyan desert. The man who believed he would become the next father of the Arabs and leader of the developing world had met his end in a gutter. Though he had rained terror down on the Libyan people for 40 years, his reign ended through the will of the people he always declared he was meant to represent. What do you think of Muammar Gaddafi? Was he a radical revolutionary forced to violence by the pressures of the West? Or was he a true tyrant who cared little for the health and safety of his people? Please let us know in the comment section. And if you found this video informative, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more historical content. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.